The sun filtered through the stained glass windows of the church, casting colorful patterns across the guests who had gathered in anticipation. Every detail of the day had been meticulously planned, from the soft pastel flowers lining the aisle to the gentle melody of the string quartet that filled the room with a sense of calm. Emma stood at the entrance, her heart fluttering with excitement, the soft lace of her wedding gown brushing against her legs as she prepared to take that first step toward her future. Her friends and family sat with tear-filled eyes, smiling in admiration as she began her walk down the aisle. The moment felt surreal, every step bringing her closer to the man she loved, the man she believed would be her partner for life. She could feel her heart racing, but it wasn't nerves. It was happiness. Pure un filter joy. She caught sight of Brandon standing at the altar, his hands clasped in front of him, looking every bit the perfect groom. His suit was tailored to perfection, his eyes focused on her with an intensity that made her feel like the only person in the room. The music swelled as she approached, and all she could think was how lucky she was to have found someone like him, kind, loving, and devoted. For years, they had built a life together, planning for this day, dreaming of the future they would share. It was finally happening. As she reached the altar, her breath caught in her throat. Brandon reached out, taking her hand in his. She smiled at him, a smile full of love and certainty. This was it, the start of their forever. Everything was perfect. At least, that's what she thought. The ceremony began just as Emma had imagined, calm, peaceful, and filled with love. The officiant smiled warmly at the couple, his voice steady as he guided them through the familiar vows. Emma squeezed Brandon's hand gently, eager to hear the words she had been waiting for, his promise to love her forever. But something was wrong. As the officiant reached the pivotal moment, "Do you, Brandon, take Emma to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Emma felt a slight hesitation in Brandon's grip. She glanced at him, expecting to see the same joy in his eyes that she felt in her heart. Instead, his face had changed. His expression was no longer soft and adoring, but tense and uncertain. The silence stretched painfully. Whispers began to ripple through the church, and Emma's stomach tightened. Brandon's hand slipped from hers. His eyes darted around the room, avoiding hers, and his breath became shallow, as if the weight of the moment was suffocating him. "Brandon," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. He took a step back, shaking his head, his face pale. Emma's heart began to race, confusion flooding her mind. In front of everyone, Brandon muttered the words that would shatter everything. "I can't do this." The gasps from the guests echoed like a thunderclap through the church. Emma's world tilted as she stood there, frozen, unable to comprehend what was happening. Without another word, Brandon turned and walked away, leaving her alone at the altar, stunned and heartbroken. The fairy tale she had envisioned crumbled in an instant, the perfect day unraveling before her eyes. In the days that followed, Emma's life became a blur of confusion and pain. The image of Brandon walking away from her at the altar played on a loop in her mind, each repetition deepening the wound. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from concerned friends and family, offering sympathy, apologies, and their own confusion over what had happened. But no one had the answer she needed. Brandon's silence was deafening. He hadn't called, texted, or reached out in any way. Not a single word of explanation. It was as if he had vanished, leaving Emma to pick up the pieces of her shattered heart on her own. She replayed every moment in her head, searching for signs she might have missed. Was there something in his behavior before the wedding? Had he ever hinted that he wasn't ready? But nothing made sense. Determined to find answers, Emma began reaching out to mutual friends, hoping someone had spoken to Brandon or knew what had happened. But every inquiry ended the same way. No one knew. It was as if Brandon had fallen off the face of the earth. Still, Emma couldn't let it go. She needed closure, something that would help her understand why he had left. With growing determination, she began looking through old text messages, emails, anything that might give her a clue. She noticed small inconsistencies in his responses during the weeks leading up to the wedding, delayed replies, vague explanations about where he had been. It wasn't enough to explain everything, but it was enough to make her suspicious. One evening, after yet another sleepless night, Emma decided to dig deeper. She reached out to Brandon's best friend, hoping he might know more. At first, he hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the conversation. But after Emma's insistence, he finally admitted that something had been bothering Brandon for months. A secret he had been hiding, one that he hadn't even shared with her. The revelation hit Emma like a punch to the gut. There was something Brandon hadn't told her. And whatever it was, it had been enough to make him leave her at the altar. She realized that finding out what that secret was might be the key to understanding everything. The revelation that Brandon had been hiding something weighed heavily on Emma's mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that whatever secret he had kept from her was the reason he had left. With her emotions teetering between heartbreak and anger, she knew she had to dig deeper, no matter how painful the truth might be. One evening, as Emma sat in her now eerily quiet apartment, she received a call from an unexpected source, Brandon's cousin Tyler. His voice was hesitant, but after a few moments, he revealed what Emma had feared. Brandon's family had been keeping him under immense pressure because of something from his past, a mistake that had resurfaced just weeks before the wedding. Years earlier, before he had even met Emma, Brandon had been involved in a serious legal issue, one that he thought he had left behind. His family had managed to cover it up, but now, the past was threatening to come back to haunt him. If this secret got out, it could destroy his career and reputation. Emma sat in stunned silence as Tyler explained that Brandon's family had discovered the situation right before the wedding and had given him an ultimatum: leave Emma and avoid scandal, or marry her and risk the truth coming out. Brandon had been paralyzed with fear. His family had convinced him that the only way to protect his future, and hers, was to walk away. They painted a picture of a life filled with turmoil if the truth ever surfaced, making it seem like abandoning Emma was an act of self-sacrifice. But Tyler made it clear that, despite their manipulation, the choice had ultimately been Brandon's. He could have fought back. He could have trusted Emma with the truth. But he hadn't. As the pieces began to fall into place, Emma's heartbreak deepened. It wasn't just that Brandon had left her, it was that he hadn't trusted her enough to face the problem together. Instead, he had chosen fear and secrecy over love and honesty. That night, Emma lay awake, her mind racing. The more she thought about it, the more she realized she had to confront Brandon. She needed to hear the truth from him, face to face. Emma spent the next few days preparing herself for the conversation she knew had to happen. She rehearsed her words, played out different scenarios in her mind, but nothing seemed to calm the storm of emotions swirling inside her. Anger, betrayal, heartbreak, they all battled for control. Yet, beneath it all, there was a quiet resolve. She needed closure, not just for herself, but to finally understand why Brandon had made such a devastating choice. One afternoon, she gathered the courage and sent Brandon a message. To her surprise, he responded almost immediately, agreeing to meet at a small cafe they used to frequent. The place held memories of happier times, but now it was just a backdrop to the confrontation that awaited them. When Emma arrived, Brandon was already there, sitting at a table in the corner. He looked worn, his face lined with guilt and exhaustion. As Emma approached, their eyes met, and for a brief moment, she saw the man she had once loved, before everything had gone so terribly wrong. But the moment passed, and the weight of what had happened settled between them like an invisible barrier. Neither of them spoke for what felt like an eternity. Finally, Emma broke the silence. "Why?" she asked, her voice steady but edged with pain. "Why didn't you tell me?" Brandon sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I thought I was protecting you. I thought if you knew the truth, it would destroy everything we had." "No," Emma interrupted, her voice firm. "You weren't protecting me. You were protecting yourself. You didn't trust me enough to face this together." Her words hit him hard. He looked down, ashamed. "You're right. I was scared. My family convinced me that walking away was the only way to keep you safe from the mess I created." Emma shook her head, her frustration mounting. "But you didn't give me a choice, Brandon. You took that decision away from me. You let your fear dictate our future." Brandon's eyes filled with regret. I know I made the worst mistake of my life. I should have told you everything. I should have trusted you." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes, but she blinked them away, determined to stay strong. "It's too late now. You hurt me in ways you can't take back. I would have stood by you no matter what. But now, I don't know if I can ever trust you again." The weight of her words settled between them. Brandon reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "I don't need you to fix this, Brandon. I need to fix myself." With that, Emma stood, leaving him behind, just as he had left her. As Emma walked away from the cafe, a strange sense of calm settled over her. It wasn't the resolution she had once imagined, but it was a resolution nonetheless. For the first time since that disastrous day at the altar, she felt a sense of control over her life. The pain was still there, raw and deep, but something had shifted. She no longer needed Brandon's apology to move forward. The days that followed were not easy. There were moments when the weight of what she had lost seemed unbearable, moments when she doubted her own strength. But with each passing day, she began to rediscover herself, slowly rebuilding her life, not as half of a couple, but as a whole person on her own. She focused on her passions, surrounded herself with friends who reminded her of her worth, and allowed herself the space to grieve and heal. She learned that her happiness did not depend on someone else's love or approval. The love she needed most was her own. Brandon, on the other hand, was left to face the consequences of his choices. The burden of his secret, once hidden, had come to light. He realized too late that his fear had cost him the most important person in his life. His journey of redemption would be long and lonely, but it was a path he had to walk alone. In the end, Emma came to understand a powerful truth. Sometimes, the hardest decisions are the ones that set us free. She had learned to value herself, to demand honesty and trust in all her relationships, and to walk away from anything that fell short of that. The lesson was clear. Real love begins with self-respect and the courage to walk away from those who don't see your worth. Thank you for watching this emotional journey of love, betrayal, and self-discovery. What did you think of Emma's decision to walk away and choose herself over a broken relationship? Do you think Brandon could ever redeem himself? I'd love to hear your thoughts on the ending. Leave a comment below and let's discuss. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more like it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story full of twists, turns, and life-changing lessons. There's always more to come, and I can't wait to share the next one with you.